You're listening to ASOTU CON Sessions by Space Auto, recorded live at ASOTU CON 2025.
We are live on the ASOTU CON podcast stage powered by Space Auto and in the heart of the action here at ASOTU CON 2025. I'm Brad Gelber and I'm joined here today by Nick Askew. Is that correct?
Oh, that's right.
All right, I killed it there. Of Space Auto, talking about how technology works with you to sell cars, not against you. Thanks for joining us, Nick.
Pleasure to be here.
So what do you think are the top reasons that make the car buying experience long and tedious? That should be easy to talk about.
Okay, so it is long and tedious, and it's not just long and tedious for the consumer, it's long and tedious for the sales managers and the salespeople, anyone involved in that transaction. And I think this is an issue that stems from multiple parts of the process that we've had for so long. It used to be that we'd take people through a process that helped guide them in order for us to make the most profitability. We were always taught to take control. I remember being taught the road to the sale, right? And it was, you meet and greet, you fact find, you inventory select, walk around, you ask them some pre-closing questions, get them into the mode of saying yes. Yeah. So I think partially it's a process driven. And that's made buying a car, we put our own barriers up.
Sure.
Secondly, I think we're at the mercy of the tools that we have to use. Mm-hmm. And as we have evolved as an industry, we have increased the friction between the customer and the dealer by creating more and more tools and more processes, more and more button clicking just to do one thing, which is connect a dealer to a customer and have a transaction.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of people here can probably relate. Dealers aren't probably always the most open to change or changing the process. So, but as you said, tech stacks and things have gotten complicated and they don't always talk to each other and there's disconnect. So on the other hand, what do you think is the hardest and most time-consuming parts of selling a car?
Well, I think selling a car is different for every single customer. I think one of the reasons that it is difficult is because we try and bring people through a single process, and that doesn't work.
Sure.
And I'll give you an example. I take one customer that is a 550 credit score, maybe a first-time buyer, doesn't have a trade. You're going to walk them through that process. You're going to try and bring them in exactly how you want them. 800 beacon calls on you on the phone, says, I've got a paid for trade. Where does that process go?
Sure.
Right there out the window,
Yep.
Right? You're gonna break that. So I think the tedious part of selling the car is the flexibility that we have to have in those processes, and then also there's just data entry.
Yep.
Because of these disjointed systems that we have, it's like Groundhog Day. Yep. You go and put in a trade appraisal online, you go and start the process, they get you into the dealership, yep. And we're going to work numbers off a worksheet from the beginning again.
Sure.
And to a dealership, they might not know that is an issue, but they're really shooting themselves in the foot in the time that they spend with their customers when they're actually just following processes and doing data entry, which is not what a high-powered salesperson is actually great at doing. They're great at building human connections.
Yep. And you're already giving them a disadvantage when the customer comes in and they don't know their background or what's happening, and then they're
Exactly.
pissed off, and then you're like working from a disadvantage already in that process. So you said process a lot, which is interesting just because you're dealing with separate processes maybe on the selling of the car side and the buying of the car side. It'd be great if they could kind of come together and work together there. So how do you think that technology has either aided or caused deficiencies in the process?
Well, I think in some ways it's aided, right? I think the consumer is much more educated than they used to be. The average person does a lot of research and can probably tell the salesperson more about the car, more about their credit situation, their equity situation than they ever have been able to in the past,
Sure.
right? Technology has aided it in a way that has guided the consumer to be more knowledgeable. Where it's halted is, vendors selling tools that increase arbitrary conversions and metrics that don't actually aid in the flow of the process and seamlessly bring that. I think that's, we focus on the wrong things. We focus on how many leads can we get. We focus on, how many phone calls can we make? And it's a volume play. Whereas we're less worried about how can we make this a fantastic and seamless experience for our customer. So on one hand, technology's done some fantastic things for us. On the other hand, if implemented poorly, you've now just created more headaches for dealers, one more tab for them to have to open, and one more place for them to maybe have missing information where the customer feels like they've already done that work.
Yeah, and I think it's been said a lot at this conference already, but that's the sort of thing where if you're just strictly worried about the conversions or the data, that's fine, and that can be manipulated to a degree depending on what it is. But if you're truly worried about the customer's experience, at the end of the day, that's probably going to go further. It's great if those two can kind of marry together, and the process or what the technology you're using creates a better consumer experience. I know that's not always possible, but that's sort of the perfect world there. In wrapping up here, with the dawn of AI, which has been talked a lot about, what steps do we think can be taken out of the process to make the experience easier and more predictive?
I've not heard of AI. Can you elaborate? No.
Allen Iverson.
So I think artificial intelligence is great at doing something that humans can do, right? Which is logic and reason. Classic computing is very structured data, and we still need this to survive, right? You won't want your DMS, potentially powered by AI because it's able to make decisions. No, you want your DMS to have real data. You want your DMS to have, solid, concrete financial information. I think where AI can fill the gaps is taking out the tedium of the tasks that we do on a repetitive basis, and with logic and reason, right?
Sure.
So if I'm on the phone, I'm going to give you a couple of examples. I'm on the phone with you, and you say, I'm going to be there tomorrow to drive that Volkswagen Atlas at 10 a.m. The appointment could be set automatically in the CRM. Right now, we go, click appointment, yes, we had a call with the customer, write the notes. This is the kind of tedium that takes time during the sales process that salespeople don't have time for, and honestly, a lot of them just fake it anyway. So it's those kind of tedious tasks, or even reporting. Most managers, you mentioned data and how easy it is to be manipulated. Did you know that statistically, with most statistics being made up on the spot, we have a tendency to look at data with a preconceived notion, and then try and find data that supports that notion anyway, right?
Yep.
It supports that.
Yep.
So we already have that. AI, completely objective. It's not trying to keep its job. It's not trying to make its salespeople look great. If you can have objective reality of your data, and it can be predictive, you can make better decisions, you can automate those decisions, and instead of having to manually build reports that are going to, maybe misguide you anyway, you can just say, hey, show me all the unsold customers that looked at Ford F-150s in the last 90 days. Build me a list.
Right.
That's the kind of thing. So it's those repetitive tasks that we have to do. I think that's where AI can really help. And in reality, right, that would cut down the time that it takes to sell and buy a car, because we're removing all the button clicking and the arbitrary steps that we have to take, and the friction for friction's sake.
Yeah, and I think one of the things AI, people ask a lot about working in marketing or in the auto space of like, well, everyone's worried, AI is going to take over all my jobs and nothing left to do. But I think using AI to become more efficient, become better, but not replace people, because there's still such a need for people and that know-how within the space. That's where I think it's best utilized is like you said, finding ways to make yourself more efficient, make a better customer experience, but it's still the people at the end of the day.
AI is only good if you have the contextual knowledge to be able to use it in its right capacity.
Yep.
If used well, it can give you superpowers, but you still have to know how to do your job.
Yeah. Perfectly said. Nick, thank you for joining us today. It's great to have you. And we'll be back coming up. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this ASOTU CON session brought to you by Space Auto. At ASOTU, we're obsessed with uniting people around one big idea, that thriving people are the only path to a thriving and profitable industry. If that resonates with you, head over to morethancars.com to join our email list and explore our full list of podcasts.